This is the audiovisual presentation for my final major project, which has the working title Beginnings. Beginnings is an experimental fiction film lasting 8 to 10 minutes, aimed at a unisex audience with an interest in art, film and literature. Uniquely, the narrative of the film is constructed from the first sentences of contributors' favourite fiction books. Usually, the filmmaker is solely responsible for creating the narrative and constructing the story of a fiction film, but my film is unique because the narrative is being created by other contributors. Obviously, I have the editorial power to make the story cohesive, to put the first sentences together to create the narrative, but the fact that I have to work with what my contributors give me makes the film interesting and exciting, and it's one reason why I want to do it. Collaborative projects are a lot more common these days, documentaries being made on YouTube with contributors sending in their own clips, and my project is following that trend, which is another reason why I am making it. Also, by combining the old mediums of literature with a new medium of experimental film, I'm offering something new, I feel. The visuals that will accompany my narrative, I want to film in a sort of theatrical, surreal way as well, so combining the idea of a theatrical look to film, which again is combining another old medium with the new. I've already carried out some research into the style and the cinematography that will influence my own film, particularly the surreal sort of cinema of people like Andrei Tarkovsky. So the settings are normal, everyday realistic settings, but strange surreal things happen. People, like in his films, people float, things like that. Obviously I'm not going to have people floating, but I'm thinking just sort of odd surreal things that really kind of gets the audience's attention. This will also work well with the surreal sort of fragmented narrative that I will get from using the first sentences of people's favourite books. Also, another influence is Terry Gilliam. So with films like Brazil, again it's a normal setting, but surreal things start to go strange. You don't expect the surreal elements because it's such a usual setting. Because obviously my narrative is going to be fragmented, it's heavily influenced by the cut-up technique used by William Burroughs, which he used to write books such as Naked Lunch. I've read Naked Lunch and it's very hard to read because it is very fragmented, so I appreciate that my story probably will be a little bit hard to follow, but I want it to be cohesive enough so that although it's a challenge to the audience, it's a challenge that they can take on without being too overwhelmed. I've already begun to construct my narrative because obviously I want to get that done as soon as possible. If I can't make a narrative, I can't make a film. I've used social networking websites, forums, to get as much input as possible, and it's been successful so far. I've used these to create a minute-ish extract, so using some of those first sentences, and I've also made a storyboard to show that my project is viable, that I can make a story. A lot of common themes were coming up in the sentences, so I'm using that as a way to construct the story. I'll show you now my test artefact, which is the storyboard and the 1 minute test narrative. I'm reading it, but in my finished piece I'm going to get a proper voiceover actor to read it for me. Enjoy! Dear reader, I'm sorry to say the book you're holding in your hands is extremely unpleasant. Moon, glorious moon, full, fat, reddish moon. The night as light as day. The moonlight flooding down across the land and bringing joy, joy, joy. It was 7 minutes after midnight. The dog was lying on the grass in the middle of the lawn in front of Mrs. Shear's house. Its eyes were closed. Midnight in the garden of the dead. Death in this forsaken place could come in countless forms. Bud Mitchell drove his Ford Explorer along June Road. The rabbit had been run over minutes before. Our first Siamese was called Sugi, and we bought her because we had mice. My friends were all of one opinion, that I was mad. When the doorbell rings at 3 in the morning, it's never good news. It was a warm spring night when a fist knocked at the door so hard that the hinges bent. What's it going to be then, eh? From a past experience working on fiction film, I know that planning's really important. That's where I've come unstuck a little bit before, so I've already planned my schedule of roughly what I'm going to stick to. By the end of this month I want to have my narrative set, have all my contributors, have it decided, and then into February be writing my script. By the end of February have the script absolutely finalised for the visuals, have a storyboard drawn up and start to find props, locations, and also put out a casting call for my actor. I know that I'm just going to have one actor. It's going to be sort of an internal monologue following the one actor with the narrative going on. There may be other voiceovers, just as sort of reflections in his head, but I just want to keep it to one actor in a few locations with the surreal sort of narrative following him through. The film itself I want to shoot by April and then have plenty of time for editing and a reshoot if it's necessary. In terms of budget, I'm hoping I won't have to pay for an actor, but if I do need to offer them pay, it will be low pay. Mostly the budget will go on prop making, set making, and if I have to pay for locations or travel to locations, and obviously travel for the actor. I want the set to have a sort of surreal theatrical look, so I've got a few contacts at home who are in fashion, are in design and art, who've already agreed to help me, so I've already got a lot of support behind me in terms of the visuals and construction side. I think that I have the right skills to take on this project, because in the past in film I've taken on the directing roles, I've been very organised, I've directed the fiction film module in the past, and I've worked with actors, I've led actors, so I know I have experience in that area and I can carry that on further. I've learned from a lot of mistakes that happened in the fiction module and I'm ready to use that experience to make this the best thing I've done. I'm a lot more competent now in the technical knowledge of equipment. I've had a lot of experience on Avid, on the cameras, on lighting now. I think my creativity is something that is very beneficial in this project. And I think just generally the idea itself is creative, so that shows that I have that creativity. I think in terms of context, my project is very relevant. There's a lot of a shift towards collaborative making of films, particularly documentary. So I found things like there's a project on YouTube called Life in a Day, which is where contributors film their life all on the same day, one day, and that's being made into a big collaborative documentary. Another, Mapping Main Street, is basically people submit video, sound and moving image clips of all the main streets in the USA, because I think there's like hundreds and hundreds, and that's all collaborated on that website. I haven't seen a lot of collaborative fiction films, so I think that's what makes my project new and interesting. The main question it answers is, can something be made from all these different existing, snippets of literature? Can they be placed in a cohesive narrative? My final film will first be distributed at the Coventry Degree Show, but apart from this I want it to be seen, so I'm going to submit it to as many film festivals as I can. First I'll show it at Roots to Shoots in Coventry, because I know that welcomes student submissions. I've looked for as many international, Rain Dance, stuff like that, Super Shorts International Film Festival, London Film Festival. I've also looked at the BBC Film Network. They accept submissions, and it's judged by the BBC's industry panel. The BBC obviously is very prestigious, so to submit my film there would be a great thing. I believe that my project is viable. From my test narrative construction about that minute snippet, that works in my mind, that works really well, and I may use that in my actual final piece. I think I can build on that and create something strange, something abstract, something new. I've got good experience with working with actors, so I think casting won't be an issue, especially as I just need one actor. I've got a good knowledge of visuals and how I want my set to look. I want it to look surreal. I know what influences, like say from Tarkovsky and stuff like that, and I know that I've got contacts who can help me realise my visions. Very good at art, fashion, for costumes as well, so I know that that side of things is very well organised. I'm really excited about making it because I see it as a massive challenge, and obviously challenge is good. I don't just want to run out something from my last project. The narrative element is very challenging, and the cinematography. I'm combining two of my passions, literature and film, the traditional and the modern, and I think that this will make for a very exciting and original project.